Welcome to Butterflies of Wisdom, everyone. And today, not only are we doing a deep dive with Mel as to what my podcast is going to look like and my writing and everything else when I leave Copeland, America, aka teaching, which is not really considered Copeland, America. I guess it is because you have the cubicle, even though you're up and moving in the classroom. But what I wanted to tell you guys first is I got an email from my editor last night, and it was basically saying, Win, you talk too much. I can't put together a 200-page manuscript because the way I write books, I use Siri. So now she has to rework the book a little bit. I've asked her, will it be out by August 12th? She hasn't necessarily gotten back to me. And my other announcement is that my other book about me becoming a journalist may get a small publisher to be working on it, because I don't know if you remember the episode. It was actually a 2-part episode with Lisa, who runs Wild Running Press. Well, basically I kind of backed her into a corner and said, would you publish my book? Now, unfortunately, if that happens, that book won't be out until 2019 or 2020, because that's the earliest opening they have. And Lisa said that live on the podcast. So we're kind of in a holding pattern with books right now. I'm supposed to get a copy of what is going to be the mosaic of CP and today, and so maybe it will come out by August 12th. I'm not sure yet. Definitely in September, because I'm being impatient and making this my final decision. And because my editor also has a disabled son, we have to now put disabilities into the factor of her own life. So, yeah, that's what she's been dealing with, along with deadlines in my books. So, basically, be patient with me and be patient with my editor, my boy editor. She has to put up with a lot. So, that being said, I'm going to talk to Mel today live about what my life is going to look like in the next 3 years.
Well, hello. Good morning to you, Win. You know, all great things come with patient love and time. So I'm certain when everything unfolds when it's supposed to, your book launch will be terrific and all that good stuff. So how are you? What's going on? What are we going into today?
Well, we're going into when I leave Copeland, America. Now, the reason why I decided to do this is because, as I told you guys, I met with Vogue Rehab on June 27th, and they asked me what my life goal was. And, of course, my dad was sitting there. And, of course, he could have said no way. But he sat there quietly and said she can do whatever she wants. I have a 30-year-old, which, believe it or not, he is now not so scared of living with a 30-year-old. But I think it's going to be good because, well, I shouldn't say I think, I know. Because when that educational ball drops and when that the boss does something incredibly stupid, I don't want to be involved with that bomb either in the public school sector or in the private school sector. I mean, I just don't. So I said to my bosses, I said that I'll be teaching for the next 3 years, and then by that time I will have gotten my fashion journalism degree, because that will only take 2 years. And so by that time I'll have professional training, or so we hope. And so I thought this was the perfect time to make the leap. Right after I walk out in San Francisco, and yes, I'll be walking. I may be walking independently. Without an assistive device, I may be walking in the Exo. We'll see what medical technology and graduation has to do, but I am certain that I can borrow a piece of medical technology, or my walker will be coming out with me, but at least I'll be grabbing my college diploma. So this is why I want to do a deep dive with Mel. So when I go back to Vogue Rehab, I have a plan in my head as to what they're going to do with me. Because, as I said, I'm the odd man out. I mean, most disabled kids and adults want a job. They don't want solo entrepreneurship. Most mentally disabled don't have a podcast, haven't written 7 books. So for them, Vogue Rehab is looking at Gumby, and Vogue Rehab is also looking at a person that knows what she wants too. So when I go back to Vogue Rehab, I want a clear understanding of what I want, so I can explain it to them eloquently. So does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. I mean, you've taken inventory from what I could see, and have some pretty clear vision. You've made some powerful decisions and set things in motion. I completely get where you're coming from. I've been an entrepreneur for as long as I can remember, and I remember opening my first company, and that took, just a sheer vision and sheer belief in it. And you absolutely have that right now. So I can totally see you doing that, and I could totally see you walking up to get your diploma, and you're going to be impacting a lot of people by these actions that you're doing. So no, things are looking great for you, and let's do everything we can to get you there.
Yep. So what I want you to basically do is do a deep dive with me live on air, so we can put this out to the universe, so I have a clear understanding of what's going on, because this is going to be Mr. Toad's wild ride. If I don't have a clear understanding, I mean, Vogue Rehab is going to send me to the Niven yarn, because they're looking at Gumby. As I said, they're looking at Gumby. They're looking at very patient client, but they're looking at a client who can figure out stuff on their own. And so I don't want Vogue Rehab to step on my toes if they don't have to.
Well, disabled or not, you're not the normal client. I mean, let's face it. People like us are a bad blend, if you will, of impatience and ambition at the same time, right? We want results.
Yes, I love that.
We want to learn how to do it the best way possible. Personally, myself, I'm not a detail person. I don't get lost in the processes. Once I intuitively feel and see something really great, and I intuitively and feel that a process is sound and it makes sense, I'll just trust it, and I allow other professionals who are better than me, who have more time vested in it, to deal with it, and I'll just go along with the ride, and I keep my sights on the results at the end. I don't know if you're that way or not, but the bottom line is, either way, that vision is clear. So walk me through it. What are the step-by-steps? Give me a timeline. How are we going to get you there? And we'll work from there. So go ahead, Wayne.
Okay. Well, I'll happily give you a timeline. In September, I am starting my classes online, which my schedule will be a little bit wonky, you guys, because I have to check in every single day, including Saturdays and Sundays, because there are, from what I've been told, there is no teacher. There's videos from the teacher, but then I have to follow the teacher's steps and procedures to get the coursework done. And even though I have extended time, that extended time is only 3 days. So basically I have a week to get everything done. And knowing me, I will get everything done and everything submitted within that week. But basically my plan is to go to school on Mondays and Wednesdays, school, and then work will be on Fridays. Work has been switched on me because, as I told you guys, I'm completely switching jobs within my department. So I requested Mondays, but I also requested Fridays. Did they listen to my Monday request? No, because I requested that in May. And so, as I said, they couldn't necessarily build the schedule around me. They had to build the schedule around a class full of 10th graders, which I truly don't mind. It's going to be fun. So on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays, I'll be busy. So luckily I have my phone, which next week we're going to talk about making your office mobile. So I'll probably be sitting at my desk Monday afternoon, or if worse comes to worse, I'll sit at my iPad and draw what the teacher wants me to draw. Yes, I do have a drawing program on my iPad. So that is how my schedule is going to work. And let's not forget, so work out in there Mondays and Wednesday afternoons. So I'll probably do school on Monday and Wednesday mornings. And let's not forget throwing podcasts in there. But if the podcast needs to take a little bit of a hiatus and my interviews need to take a little bit of a hiatus, I'll do that. But I'm definitely keeping the podcast feed up. With Mount Live, decided that actually last night when I got the schedule to my work on Sunday, I think it was I got that. And so I thought, well, how's this going to work if I'm trying to keep a podcast / trying to hold a job part-time / trying to go back to school? And even though it sounds to you guys like a little bit of a mess right now, and it won't be a little bit of a mess. Wynn may just be underneath the rock, but Wynn knows her support system, and Wynn knows her body, and I thankfully have Aeon chair out in my office, which is a high quality office chair. And I actually have a exercise ball office chair in my room with my iPad. so I can sit there and control my body weight and do all that while I'm working away. Plus, I'm adding in working in the exo. So yes, no, that's how my schedule's going to work out, and hopefully Wynn doesn't get buried in the Kindle textbook.
Well, let's look at a couple of things. Let's look at a couple of things here. First, so you roughly have, I don't know, what, 6 to 8 weeks before school starts. So let's look at between now and that time. Okay, and then also once school starts, let's look at that, because what I see happening here, and I've gone through this, is that there's whenever you want to learn something, you especially over an extended period of time that's formal, like structured classes, you're going to go through info overload. That's just the bottom line. Okay, because you've got classes and you've got assignments and you have projects and you have deadlines and all that. So that starts to kind of mount up in the back of your mind, and no matter how organized you are, it is what it is. Second, you're going from being a full-time podcaster into now adding this major part of your life, which is not a bad thing. It's not replacing anything. It's actually an investment into making, everything else better. They're all indirectly connected, right? So as a podcaster, that in and of itself is a form of art, which makes you an artist. Okay. And artists, what do artists do? They expel creativity, right? They expel it from within. You have to have energy, creative energy coming out of you via inspiration. All right. So as you're bringing in all this information and processing it and working through it, you're also spending part of your week drawing out creative energy out of yourself so that you could perform at a high level, right? Okay. So that could be a tricky thing. Therefore, it's very important that you also have in place a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual release system. That would be your meditation time. That would be your self-reflection time. That would be contemplative prayer. That could be just simply checking in with yourself on a regular basis, doing some daily mirror work, physical exercise. I mean, all those are kind of intertwined and they can all serve the same purpose, and you can bunch them all in together. But the bottom line is that has to be in place because your mind and body can only take so much. You know what I'm saying? So, which leads me to the time prior. This all starts in September. What are you doing to prepare yourself for that? Because I can tell you right now, your mind knows what's coming. Your body knows what's coming. You have deeply planted it into your subconscious already. You made some decisions. And when it starts to happen, boom, there it is, and your mind and body will just take over. It's the same thing for me, like if I'm going to run a half marathon. I've done 6 of them. If I were to prepare for my 7th one this weekend, it wouldn't matter how much I've run prior to that to work out. Once the starting line starts, my body knows what's going to happen. And I've done all the preparatory work prior to that. So what are you doing between now and then to somewhat loosely say to prepare yourself or to kind of put things in place, so that you're ready to go? What do you have going on?
Well, I'm trying as hard as I can to make the podcast recordings 2 days a week. And I think, actually I know that I am going to batch episodes. I'm going to record on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and batch episodes all the way up into December on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And my assistant doesn't even know this yet because I did this out last night. So that if I get underneath the textbooks, I don't have to worry about is the podcast coming out, because I want my tone, I want my CT to stay as low as possible. And because when I get really stressed out or when I get hypervigilant, which I did this morning by accident, my tone goes off the wall, which is part of CT. So now you have to deal with a physical disability which changes daily. It literally does.
Mm.
I mean, one day I could be perfectly fine, the next day I could be off the walls. And so I am going to batch episodes, make it so Tuesdays and Thursdays will be my recording days, and then throwing down the occasional Mondays as a backup plan. And then I'm going to batch episodes up until December, so so I don't have to worry about it. And so, because I want to keep my CP at bay to the best of my abilities, and sitting in the Aeon chair, and I'll be, you guys, and Mel, this will make you feel happy, I'll be moving hourly to the iPad, to the computer, to a comfy chair, because I'll have Kindle textbooks, so I can do that on any device. And so I'll be up and watching hourly, and maybe if I get around to it, I can get a standing desk or something in the next couple of years there, because apparently standing desks have gotten cheaper and they are wonderful.
That sounds pretty awesome. That's, I love how you're foreseeing that kind of organization in your schedule. I do invite you to entertain one thing, to explore one thing, and that is energy management versus time management. Now, I've spent my entire career with a schedule. Back in the 80s when I started my career as a coach, we didn't have smartphones. We didn't even have Google Calendar. Hell, we didn't even have digital calendars on laptops or computers. We had the good old-fashioned daytimer notebook, right?
Yeah.
And if I could look back on some of those old ones, boy, I could look at all the scribbles, and it all made sense to me, right? And I've built this career on time management, and there has been a lot of stress involved in that. It made me very, very successful, but it came at a price. You end up what we call success with sacrifice, and there should be success without sacrifice. So I invite you to entertain one thought, which is energy management, right? So I'm going through this program right now called the Immersion Mastermind, and most people run on the premise of do something to become something, and then you have something, versus be yourself, be something, and then do something, and then you'll have something. And I invite you to kind of look at that, because it's important that you manage your energy versus manage your time. Yes, you can have a schedule. Yes, you can have all that laid out. However, no one really ever said that you have to stick to it or you'll fail. There's going to come times when I'm going to tell you where, you got to record a podcast and you're looking at batching. Batching is awesome. It's a great, theoretical practice. But at the same time, if you stick to it no matter what, that no matter what is going to be, no matter how you're feeling, you're going to somewhat, literally almost force yourself to come up with the inspiration to be that creative artist you need to be for that podcast. And you and I both know that when you are not flowing with great energy, in your interior design, it's hard to be creative. It's hard to find those words and to be punctual and to be on point and stuff like that. I've done it. I'm sure you've done it. Now that you're going to undertake this educational endeavor, and it's a pretty big deal. Let's just say it. I would be mindful of that. I would be definitely mindful of your nutrition. Mindful eating is very important. Really feeling and enjoying your meal, so that eating is probably the greatest act of self-love there is. Second, be mindful of the energy that you're putting out, and more importantly, be mindful of the energy you're allowing to come back in. Your sleep patterns, your reflection time, your total quiet time. Just quiet the storm, because if you're anything like me, my mind doesn't stop, and it takes it takes a lot for my mind to stop. You know, you just
no, my mind doesn't
do that. It's just a
stop.
theme. Right. So your mind is going to kind of it may go into some sort of overload modes once in a while, and that's normal. What's not normal is constantly forcing it to stay there because you think you need to perform at a high level, or else you won't feel that level of success you want. It's such a lie. It's such a lie. Not necessarily true. Okay, so, you know, be mindful of the batching. Be mindful of the scheduling. Be mindful of things. If you absolutely don't have it that day, don't do it. Shift your energy. Shift your energy somewhere else, even for 10 minutes. Okay, and trust me, the world that you created that you think is going to make you successful will be there waiting for you. This was a really hard lesson for me lately. I'm working in an international coaching group with some incredibly dynamic people who are type A success, you know, driven people like you and I. And one of the hardest things for us is to manage our energy versus manage our time, because it's the whole hustle and grind thing. And it drives me nuts whenever I see this. Yeah, you may be out partying and having a good time on a Friday or Saturday night, but I'm still working, doing whatever it takes to succeed. Okay, well, great. You know, if you're going to view people who are out enjoying themselves and having a good release as people who are lazy and not wanting to do that little extra edge, what about all the work they did prior to that? Maybe they were working at 2 in the morning while you were sleeping. You know, it's a very kind of a narrow perspective. You know what I mean? So be mindful eating, mindful reflection, energy management, all that stuff. And I'm happy to, you know, kind of expand on that with you offline. And we should do that, because there's only so much you can do, and you are always going to give your best because you care. That much I know. So between now and September is really where, between now and September,
I would appreciate
is the perfect time.
And if you would help me offline.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
My new rule, you guys, is I'm going to turn my phone off at 9 p.m. and not turn it back on until at least 7 a.m. And that is Mountain Standard Time, by the way. And that's going to be implemented in August, because I'm realizing now I can function on 6 hours of sleep, but 9 hours I feel great, and it's as I get older, my body seems to get into shock more. And even though I've been steady for a week, I am noticing that my body is changing as we all get older. And unfortunately, Wynn doesn't like that fact of her body aging, whereas my mind is not. My mind can be perfectly fine on the 5 hours sleep. Nope, CT doesn't like that. So I am actually going to turn my phone off at 9 p.m. and not turn it back on until 7 a.m. So you guys can deal with that, because part of making the office normal and part of what Mel is saying is you need quiet time without the podcast, without social media, without every which way going in and out of your ears and going in and out of your head. And on iOS 11, when you guys get iOS 11, I have the beta on my phone, and no podcasting app doesn't work, but I found a different podcasting app that does. Apple Podcast doesn't work, but iOS 11 is really cool. And one of the features that they have is, and everyone gets this on their iPhone, including me, everyone that does drive and doesn't drive gets this on their iPhone. And it says, would you like to put your phone in Do Not Disturb when you're in a vehicle? So, of course, yesterday. My assistant gets that text. She replies back to me, your phone is acting up. I said to her, well, do you want me to have a solid conversation with my dad, or with my stepmom in the car? And she goes, I get it. And it's like, really? You don't want me to have downtime in the vehicle? And my dad will admit this publicly. He doesn't like smartphones. So I think that's a really cool safety feature that they have implemented in iOS 11. So those of us who are on the roads in California, I think it's illegal to be texting and talking on the phone. Isn't that now? That is
so correct, yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah,
in California,
it is illegal.
So now Apple's helping you guys in California and in Colorado too. For those of you who have sent those texts of driving, I will look at the text when I get to where I'm going. But I have it set up, so please keep me safe. Please keep me safe. I'm spending quality time with whoever X, Y, and Z. I will look at the text when I can. So that's me and what I'm doing with iOS 11. Now people who have vehicles will understand my text, but my assistant didn't get it. But my assistant's younger than I am, and she's the millennial generation that likes texting, whereas I didn't get a computer until I was in second grade, and we didn't have a family computer until 1997. And now, dating myself, and we had one computer. I didn't get a cell phone until I was 17, and that was, maybe 15, and that was only for emergencies. And of course, we were on a family trip. So, yeah. So now, these millennial generations are stuck in their texting, and I'm sorry, but it drives me nuts, because I'm not used to that. I'm used to sending texts for work-related stuff, but I'm not used to necessarily having the instant response and hanging out with friends on text. I'm used to picking up the phone or texting mail. And so, I want, and Mel just reminded me of something. So when we say making the office mobile, that is going to be the next week. And so I think what we did today, I have a clear understanding of what's going on. And so when we make the office mobile next week, just remember you can set that setting in iOS 11. And how would you like to close out this half an hour now?
Well, I could tell you again, it's energy management versus time management. I've had a mobile office for the last 8 years, and it's been wonderful. However, there are times when it becomes a stressor and an energy drainer, because it's always on you, and you're always performing. Very, very important to shut it down. Very, very important to put it down for a little bit. Like I said, the world will be waiting for you when you get back. But I look forward to working with you offline with energy management, and let's get you prepared for the best journey ahead. And we'll look at mobile office operations next week.
Yeah, we'll look at mobile office operations next week, and I started doing that in 2012 and we'll get into that next week, because know what happened to me in 2012, and we'll get into why I started doing that in 2012. You know what happened to me. I lost my mom, but you don't know why I did the mobile office in 2012. That's a whole different podcast in itself, and so we'll get into that next week. And the week of September 6th, when I go back to work, we're going to do a deep dive on how I'm going to become a New York Times bestselling author, and hopefully my book will be out by then, and hopefully my books will be out by then, and hopefully I will have a more of a concrete idea what's going on with school and what's going on with books. I'll give you guys an update of what's going on with school, the end of September, early October, so you guys know. So I'm not completely release a textbook, but I hope you guys enjoy another fabulous episode. You will hear me later on today, and you might hear this episode later on today if things work out in my favor, if I don't get phone calls, and if I don't have to deal with voc rehab today. You guys will hear this episode later on today. And so that's my plan, and let's make it a great day, you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.